Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving straight into the wild journey of sodium-ion battery tech. We're taking a full-blown trip from microscopic, highly controlled chemistry labs all the way to the absolute chaos of today's hyper-competitive commercial market. The energy sector's pretty hyped right now, and honestly, by the end of this, you're going to see exactly why. Let's get into it. Okay, so we got to start with the macro problem. Look, lithium-ion batteries, they've completely changed the game. They're in our phones, laptops, and obviously millions of EVs. And lithium is fantastic for that stuff because it's super light and incredibly energy dense. But when you zoom out to the global scale, you've really got to ask, is there literally enough of it to back up the entire global renewable energy grid? And the harsh reality? Probably not. Lithium is just way too rare and frankly way too expensive for the massive storage we desperately need to handle intermittent wind and solar power.
So here is our roadmap for the explainer. We're going to hit the lithium shortage problem, the sodium-ion solution, the anode engineering challenge, next-gen anode materials, and finally, market hype versus reality.
Part 1. The lithium shortage problem, the bottleneck of sustainable storage.
Moving right along to Part 2. The sodium-ion solution, Earth-abundant power.
Now, if you look at the periodic table, sodium is sitting right next door to lithium. That means they actually share super similar alkali metal chemistries. They both use this cool rocking chair mechanism where ions basically just bounce back and forth between electrodes. But here's the absolute game changer. Sodium is genuinely Earth-abundant. I mean, it's literally in the ocean. So the big idea here is to pair this wildly abundant element directly with giant wind turbines and massive stationary batteries. We essentially want to take 30 years of lithium manufacturing know-how and just copy-paste it right over to sodium.
Which brings us to Part 3, the anode engineering challenge, the chemical hurdle.
Naturally, it wasn't quite that easy. Scientists immediately hit a massive thermodynamic brick wall. See, the standard commercial anode, the negative electrode for a lithium-ion battery, is just pure graphite. Now, think of that anode like a suitcase. Lithium ions, they pack super neatly into those graphite layers. The suitcase zips up perfectly, the chemical structure is balanced, and boom, it just works. But sodium ions, no way. They absolutely refuse to fit. The thermodynamics are just completely unfavorable, so sodium barely enters the graphite at all. It's like trying to overstuff that suitcase. It won't close, and you risk sodium plating all over the carbon surface, which basically wrecks the battery's capacity right out of the gate.
And the hard data backs this up perfectly. Graphite delivers this beautifully high, stable capacity for lithium, pulling in almost 372 milliamp hours per gram. But for sodium, the capacity literally drops off a cliff. The whole suitcase concept totally fails under standard conditions. So the exact same magic material that made lithium batteries a massive commercial success was basically useless for sodium. The scientists had to go back to the drawing board.
Part 4, next-gen anode materials, innovating at the atomic level.
Okay, so to fix this whole anode issue, researchers started looking at alloy-type materials, specifically tin. Now, tin is awesome because it can theoretically store massive amounts of sodium, but there's a catch. It expands by a whopping 420% when charged. Imagine that suitcase we talked about suddenly bursting to over 4 times its original size, in a battery that just causes rapid, total pulverization. So to stop the battery from essentially destroying itself, scientists got really creative with nature and nanotechnology. First, they used hierarchical wood fibers as a base. The natural, wrinkly texture of the wood perfectly cushions the insane mechanical stress of that expanding tin. Then, they coated it with an ultra-thin layer of aluminum oxide, using atomic layer deposition, or ALD. This acts like a flexible, ion-conductive nanoglue, so even when the tin swells up, this nanoglue flexes and holds the particles right onto the wood so they don't snap off. It is just an incredibly elegant fix to a really brutal mechanical problem. All right, Part 5, market hype versus reality. On the floor at CIBF 2026.
So, having conquered those massive chemical hurdles in the clean room and watching big companies field validate the tech, let's fast forward a bit. We're stepping out onto the floor of the 2026 China International Battery Fair, and man, the landscape has entirely shifted. All of a sudden, literally every manufacturer is claiming to be the king of sodium-ion tech. Everyone's got a sodium battery sitting at their booth. But, we've got to put our investigator hats on here. We need to separate the genuine commercial breakthroughs from the clever marketing hype, because just handing out a glossy brochure definitely doesn't mean you have a viable battery ready to ship.
And breaking down the market data really cuts through all that trade show noise. Notice the massive contrast. You've got brands showing off these giant 355 amp-hour batteries, but realistically, they're just prototypes.
Other guys are boasting about a 20,000 cycle life, but they aren't even in mass production yet. CBAC actually has a cylindrical version available, but it's going to cost you almost double. But then look at Heine, their 160 amp-hour prismatic battery. It is mass-produced right now. It really stands out as the most reliable, bulk-ready option actually available on the market today.
So what's the real takeaway for you from this explainer? What does the 2026 commercial reality actually look like? Well, first off, definitely stick to prismatic designs for now. They're just way more cost-effective than the cylindrical ones. Second, watch out for those giant capacity claims. Some of these booths were pushing 588 amp-hour sodium batteries packaged in the exact same physical size as a 668 amp-hour lithium battery. Since sodium inherently has a lower energy density, the physics of that literally do not add up. It's just advertising fluff, guys. Third, keep in mind that legacy lithium companies are going to need time to retool their assembly lines. If you need real bulk today, your safest bet is absolutely the companies strictly focused on sodium, specifically those churning out proven products like that Hino 160 amp-hour cell. Wow, what an incredible journey we've seen today. We went all the way from frustrating thermodynamic failures in the lab to some seriously ingenious nanoglue solutions, right into a hyper-competitive, mass-produced market reality. Sodium-ion is officially here and it's gearing up to back up our grid. But I gotta ask you, with all this momentum building up, are we looking at the beginning of the end of lithium's absolute dominance in energy storage? Or is this just the start of a beautifully balanced, dual battery future? Thanks for hanging out with me for this explainer. And remember to always keep questioning the science behind the hype.